This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome to the Fan Reporter Show, made by fans, for fans, powered by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and joining us today is Andrew's going to give us this week's topics.
Well, the Lions didn't have cheese for dinner on Sunday. Another loss for the Lions. First one under Darrell Bevell, though. However, we did see Matthew Stafford go down, so we'll talk about that as well. And we had a couple Pistons preseason games. Pistons haven't played in about 9 months, so finally have some games to talk about. It's a Fan Report.
We've got live basketball here in the city of Detroit, and for the first time, and I can't even tell you how long, we had two Detroit sports teams playing on the same day.
Oh my! It was. I had two screens up watching them both. I'm like, what year is it? What is going on?
I honestly can't even tell you the last time I watched two different Detroit sporting events in the same day. It's been a long time.
But boy, did it feel good, even though one of them was preseason and one of them just didn't really matter, to be honest with you.
Yes. Before we get into, breaking down the game or the Lions game or any of the Pistons games, I have one Lions-centric question for you.
Okay.
Are the Lions' playoffs hopes dead?
Yes.
Falling down to 8 wins, the best they can be is 8-8 this year, even with the extra playoff spot. I agree with you. I think their playoffs hopes are dead.
I'm sorry, I don't see you beating Tennessee next week. I don't
think. To be completely honest with you, for the Lions to have, in my opinion at least, for the Lions to have had any chance of making the playoffs, they needed to have 9 wins going into the final 4 games of their season, because there was a very good shot they were going 0-4 in the final 4 with the schedule that they have. It's not easy. Tampa Bay, Tennessee, Green Bay, and I believe Minnesota's their last game.
I believe so.
So they weren't winning. Not even. I don't even think they had a chance to win half those games, let alone all of them or 3 of them. So at best, they could have picked up 1 and helped their seeding in the playoffs. But they didn't have 9 wins at this point. So they, in my opinion, will not be even close to the playoffs. I think they'll be far closer to a top 10, to a top 7 or 8 pick than they will to a playoff spot. And, at 5-8, with the way things are shaping up in the NFC, that's probably true. We saw 3 teams in the NFC East pick up a game this week, which, big shocker there. Like, not even being sarcastic, big shocker. Yep. So, but in all reality, that only helps the Lions in the long run, because teams in the NFC East winning games puts the Lions closer to a high pick, especially when the Lions are losing games. So that, it helps us out in the long run. I really don't think what we have now is the future of this franchise with Darrell Bevell as the coach. I don't think he's going to be the coach long term. I think he's done after the year. He's probably looking for a new job after the season, in all honesty. I'm not entirely certain Matthew Stafford will be back as the quarterback of this football team. And I'm also not entirely certain that a lot of these guys on this football team will be back next year. We could see a total overhaul with this roster in a lot of ways. Even some names that we may not necessarily want to see go away, we may not see next year. One of those names is Kenny Golladay. He may not be back. So, and with recent mock drafts that I've seen, that is starting to become a little bit more plausible, considering a lot of the mocks I'm seeing have the Lions drafting the wide receiver out of Alabama. I believe his name is Devontae Smith. Is that it?
I believe so. I think you're right on that one too. I saw both the Bama receivers in mocks for the Lions. So
like I said, I've seen more and more mocks. I've seen more mocks show the Lions taking a wide receiver than any other position. I've seen a pass rusher for one of them.
Is that something you want though?
No, because I don't believe this franchise is a wide receiver away from winning anything or making the playoffs or even really competing in the NFC. I think this roster truly does need a total overhaul, and starting with a wide receiver, Devontae Smith, is not how you do that. You don't draft your wide receiver and build around him. No, you draft your quarterback and build around him. Or if you have your quarterback or you aren't in a spot to get your quarterback, you draft from the trenches and build out from there. You're not winning anything with a bad football team drafting a wide receiver in the first round here. It's lunacy, in my opinion.
Yeah, but like at this point, I think theoretically the Lions can go as high as 4 in this draft right now, like in terms of seeding. I just don't see it really happening. And I think you have played yourself out of a top 10 pick. I feel like even if you lose out, the best you're probably looking at is like 9 or 10.
can't necessarily say they played themselves outside of a top 10, but I definitely think they played themselves out of a top 5, and I definitely think they played themselves even out of a top 6 or 7. I think they can get into that 8, 9, 10 range pretty easily.
Yeah.
With their schedule the way it is.
Mm-hmm. But so you're not really looking at taking either way. Like we're falling here. We're not going to be in a position to take one of the top quarterbacks, and it becomes a thing of weighing. Should we take a receiver who could end up being a elite receiver, or take a gamble on a quarterback like maybe the guy from BYU,
Zach Wilson,
Zach Wilson.
I mean, I would rather have a guy like Zach Wilson. He is a guy.
There's no guarantee he drops you either.
No, and there's really not, and that's the unfortunate part. Because even if the Lions were to miraculously go all the way up to a top 5 pick, the prize of this draft is still not going to be available to you. Because the thing is there's a lot of football teams out there right now that need a quarterback. The Jets, the Jags, the Broncos, the Panthers, they're all in the market for a quarterback. Not to mention the Saints are probably in the market for a quarterback. Also, you have to, granted, they won't be up that high, but who else is going to be in the market? I mean, you're looking at, Miami's not. Mm-hmm. The Giants possibly could be. There's, possibilities there. The Jaguars are definitely in the hunt for a quarterback. You have a lot of teams that are going to be hunting for a quarterback, and you're just one of the many at this point. So the top 2 guys are probably going to go 1 and 2 to the Jets and the Jags, and then you're looking at the Bengals don't need one, the Chargers don't need one. The Cowboys possibly could be looking at a quarterback depending on the situation with Dak. The Eagles are probably looking for a quarterback. The Panthers, the Falcons possibly could be looking for a quarterback. The Dolphins, no. The Broncos, yes. So, even if the Lions were the Washington football team, they're probably looking for a quarterback. So, in Chicago's looking for a quarterback. So, 10 of these teams in the top 15 picks are looking for a quarterback, and you're one of them. I'll tell you right now, there's not 10 first-round quarterbacks in this draft.
Nope.
So, unless you're in that top 5, you're not getting the pick of the litter.
Yeah, I've seen mock drafts with 4. 4, I think, is the most. No, I think I've seen a one mock draft with 5 quarterbacks in the first, but I think in the top 10. Sorry, but no, I think 4. I think the most I've seen
in the top 10 is 4 quarterbacks. I think the most I've seen in the top 10 is 4 quarterbacks between Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, and Trevor Lawrence. Kyle Trask is another one I've seen thrown up in the first round, more so the middle to late rounds or even the early second rounds. But it's not going to be easy to get a quarterback in this draft. No. It's not. So you have to either be aggressive and trade up to get one if you're the Lions, or you take what is probably the 3rd or 4th guy on your board. And is that worth doing at 10, 11, 12? Maybe, maybe not. Depends on how well you've scouted this guy. And this is a tough year to scout. Absolutely. Because of the fact that these teams aren't really playing anybody outside their conferences. So who knows what you're getting? So, but if the Lions were sitting at, let's say they get into the top 10. Let's say they go to 9.
Okay.
If you're sitting at pick 9, you see Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields go top 2. I'll give you 2 scenarios here. Scenario 1, all 3 of Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, and Kyle Trask are available to you at pick 9. Are you picking a quarterback at pick 9 with those 3 names available?
I'll take a gamble on Zach Wilson.
I probably would too, and honestly, I'd probably even take a gamble on Trey Lance. I know you don't really know much about him. I believe he's at North Dakota State or something like that, but maybe he develops into something. I don't know. It's possible. Maybe he becomes the quarterback of the future, but I think it's a crapshoot anywhere beyond. And in all honesty, in my opinion, it's a crapshoot beyond Trevor Lawrence because I don't believe in Ohio State quarterbacks. I don't. Is Justin Fields an extremely talented quarterback? Yes, absolutely. But I just don't believe in Ohio State-bred players. Now, take Zach Wilson out of the equation. If Trey Lance and Kyle Trask are available to you at pick 9, are you taking a quarterback there?
Then it becomes tougher. I'll be honest with you, I might... You know what? Yeah, I'll probably go Trey Lance.
I would with Trey Lance. If none of those 4 are available, I'm not taking a quarterback there. I'm honestly waiting until next year. I'll sign a guy in a 1-year deal to be my quarterback, or I'll ride Matthew Stafford for another year. But I will not draft. I won't go as deep as Kyle Trask at that high in the first round. And now, mind you, you have to look at, and a lot of people say, well, we can just get Kyle Trask either later on in the first round, trade back up, or get him early second round. Well, in all reality, to get a good quarterback in today's league, you have to do it in like the top 10. You have to pick the guy in the top 10. There are very, very, very few quarterbacks that are taken outside the top 10 in today's league that are actually long-term successful solutions in this league. Yes, I know guys like Russell Wilson exist, but he's the outlier. He's the one name that you can mention. I mean, I think there's like three of them in the last. There's only like 3 to 5 of them in the last 15 years or 10 to 15 years that have been taken outside the first round, let alone outside the top 10, and been successful. There's not many quarterback names out there that have been taken late in the outside the first round and been successful. There's not. So to get a good quarterback in this league, you do have to take them in the top 10.
But I'll be honest with you, like, you don't like quarterbacks like Trey Lance. I mean, I guess Trevor Lawrence is the exception here, but quarterbacks like Trey Lance, like we've seen this with Deshaun Watson. We've seen this with Patrick Mahomes. Like, his style of quarterback doesn't normally go in the top 10 to begin with because it's so rare for his style of game to translate to the NFL. But when it does, it pops. So when you're taking a guy like that outside the top 10, you're taking the gamble, but it could. A guy like Trey Lance could pay off because he could get done with his legs as well. And I don't even remember us having a quarterback quite like that in the Motor City, and at least in my lifetime.
Definitely not in my lifetime. No, definitely not in our lifetime. It's just looking at the history of the draft, at least in the last 10 years, it shows the level of importance of finding your guy at the right spot. And the right spot being high. Because, again, you are not going to find a quarterback outside of that first round. And very few are successul if you do find them. And I know there's a couple in the league now that are. But at the same time, for every one that was successful and taken outside the first round, there's probably 10, 15 that are unsuccessful. Your chances of success are far higher when you take a quarterback inside that first round and high inside that first round.
Oh, yeah. Move on to the game, though?
Yeah, we can go ahead and move on to the game.
I want to preface this by saying, even though I wasn't really invested in the outcome of this one, I still think that Marvin Jones catch was a catch, and I didn't know you could box out on as a cornerback in the end zone.
The Marvin Jones catch was a catch. It was not a touchdown.
No,
but it was a catch
at the 1 yard line.
Yes, it was a catch there. He went out of bounds at the 1 yard line. Yes, I agree with you there. The boxing out in the end zone, whatever. Either way, the Lions weren't winning this football game.
No,
even if Stafford was healthy, I don't think the Lions are winning this football game. They couldn't stop Devontae Adams in any way. And
don't be fooled thinking they stopped Aaron Jones. He had 4.6 yards per carry.
He did.
Right? He just didn't get a lot of volume.
Right. He didn't get the opportunity to really set the tone and do what he did to you earlier this year. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that they could just throw the ball Devontae Adams' way and he would do something with it. And in all honesty, Valdez-Scantling also burned you. Again.
And the interesting thing on our side is DeAndre Swift did not look himself. I'm starting to see what they were talking about in terms of his recovery process from that concussion. They weren't lying. He doesn't look like himself.
No, not at all.
But like I didn't have many, other than the fact that the team fought and competed in a way that I didn't see them do under Patricia. I don't have really a positive stroke to paint on this game other than we're closer to a top 10 pick.
The one positive I can take from this game was once again TJ Hawkinson continuing to perform. He's a guy who, we've said it before, has taken a big step up this year.
That was an interesting touchdown.
It was an interesting touchdown, but he has been very reliable at the tight end position week in and week out, and to see him be successful is something I'm at least extremely excited about for the future with him.
Yeah.
Other than that, like you mentioned, DeAndre Swift was not good. And AP said it a couple of weeks ago where he just has not looked the same since his concussion and something's going on in there. We're starting to kind of see it. And I know this is his first game back. And I'll be honest with you, I am a little bit concerned because long-term concussion issues and concussions that linger around are dangerous and can ruin careers and even end careers. Look at Javid Best. It's a scary situation. I really do hope DeAndre Swift he comes back and is healthy. And frankly, I'm at a point where I almost don't want to see him get hurt any further. So
I hold him. I don't let Stafford come back, even if he is ready to come back. I hold
him out. Yeah, I hold him out. I hold Galladay out. I hold Stafford out. I mean, I don't see at this point what Stafford can do to either A, secure his job further that isn't that if he's here to stay, it's not in doubt. And B, he's not going to do anything to adjust his trade value either. Mm-hmm. So just keep him out. You're out of a playoff spot. There's no reason to risk injury to the future of your franchise in DeAndre Swift and Kenny Galladay. And Stafford's not going to affect his trade value or affect any belief in him in the final 3 games either way.
But I'll tell you this, we're really going to see how much Matthew Stafford boosts his team offense now over these next 3 games.
I'll be honest with you, I don't think very much because he's played terrible this year. He's been absolutely awful this year, and he's had a couple of good games where he took control, but overall, he's been a bad quarterback in 2020.
I think it's going to get real ugly. With
I do too, but you're asking Chase Daniel to shoulder the load. Chase Daniel sucks. Does Matthew Stafford suck? No, he's a solid quarterback. This year, he's not been very good at all, but he's better than Chase Daniel.
Yep.
So, of course, the offense is going to struggle. There's no question about it. At least Matthew Stafford poses a threat to defenses. Chase Daniel ain't scaring anybody. Stack the box all you want. Of course, the offense is going to struggle without Matthew Stafford. There's a big step down there, even with Matthew Stafford playing poorly. But to say that Matthew Stafford lifted this offense to levels that nobody else could, not this year. Not this year. Early last year in the 8 games he played last year, yes, absolutely. But this year, ain't no chance.
No, but here's the question. Matthew Stafford, did we just see his last game as a Lion?
I'll be honest, I actually think there is a possibility we have. I'm not quite sold on the next regime coming in and keeping him around. Granted, that would be the most Lion-esque thing to do, would be to keep him around. He's, quote-unquote, the best thing we've ever had in this franchise, so we need to keep him around. No, you don't. You can get better. You know what? You can even fail the first time you try to get better. That's okay. As long as you continue to try to improve, and eventually you do, that's success. So, but I'm holding out hope that, yes, this is the last game we've seen Matthew Stafford play in a Lions uniform for both parties' sakes.
Yeah.
Like,
I want to see Matthew Stafford go win something, man.
I wish the best to him. I hope he goes and wins somewhere else.
Here's some fun Matthew Stafford trivia. In 2020, where does Matthew Stafford rank among QBs in QB rating? If you can guess.
Probably.
If you get within 3, I'll give it to you.
Probably around 20.
You were just within 3. He's 17.
All right.
You know who has a higher QB rating than him?
Tua
Tagovailoa.
Tua's been balling out, man. He's been balling out with, I'll be honest with you, a not so great offense.
I don't know what he has against Devontae Parker, though, but he's been balling out.
He sure loves himself some Mike Gesicki, though.
No catches for Devontae Parker this past week.
I don't know. They just are not on the same page, those two.
Dude, Gesicki's been a beast with him, though. You're right.
Yes, he has.
Now, I did see one interesting thing, and then if we wanted to keep talking about Stafford, we can, but I just want to make sure I bring this up. We do have some new news on the GM/head coach search for the Lions.
We do. I actually saw this today.
Sheila has been quoted saying she's looking for a proven head coach/GM team, and the search could last 6 weeks. That kind of goes a different direction than what you and I were looking at at least for head coach, in terms of Robert Saleh, Airbnb. These aren't proven head coaches. These guys have never been head coaches.
Are
you worried?
I mean, yes, and I'm gonna take what she says with a little bit of a grain of salt. Because of the fact that I think the proven aspect, they're leaning more towards the GM side. I did see a name today actually interviewed. I believe it was the former Houston Texans general manager.
Yes.
His name is slipping my mind. I want to say it's like Rick Smith. Yes, Rick Smith. They interviewed him today to potentially be the GM of the future for the Lions. And
he's expected to interview next week.
Sorry. He's a guy who drafted Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, J.J. Watt. So he's got some rapport to him with he's got some clout to him with when it comes to the draft a little bit. So there is something to be said about that one. Is he my favorite candidate? No. Is he a proven guy? Yes. But proven for the head coach position. I think what they're looking at is more along the lines of a guy who is proven to be successful as what he does, not necessarily as a head coach.
That's what I would hope she means.
And then Robert Saleh and Eric Bieniemy would still fall in that framework there. So I would hope that as well. But if they are looking for a coach that is experienced at the head coach position, is a proven candidate, I'd be worried that they're looking at a retread at that point. Because that, in my opinion, is really the only way they're going to get a guy who is a proven coach to come here is if he is a retread that's kind of in a way been cast out of the league and hasn't found a job in a while, or has been in college for a while.
Oh, God.
Because then you're just looking at a retread, and that's not what I want here in Detroit.
I am not watching this team if we hire Jim Harbaugh. I'm not doing
So
it.
you picked up what I was putting down there. All right. I don't want us to go that route. I don't think a retread's the way to do it in today's league. Retreads just don't tend to work and be successful when you want to win. You need to find the next guy, the next Sean McVay, the next Cliff Kingsbury, the next Matt LaFleur. You need to find that guy that's going to come in here, win over the locker room.
No, let's get Bill Cowher.
Oh, God. I thought he already said no.
He just sees the name. No, just kidding.
I don't want to see a retread. I want us to get the right guy. And I know that's what we did with Matt Patricia. It's supposed to be the guy to come in and change the way things work here. It was too lax. They need some discipline, and he brings it. I understand we failed at that, but they got stuck in that stupid Patriot way, which worked 10 years ago. It doesn't really work anymore, and the league's changed. You can't get stuck in that. You can't emulate another team and another organization. You have to be your own and build your own organization and your own identity. And by doing that, you got to bring in guys like Eric Bieniemy, Robert Saleh, along those lines. And that's what I think the Lions need to do. I don't want to see a retread here.
I agree. Anything else on the Lions?
I actually do. I heard something on the radio on my way home from the ticket, the afternoon show. They posed an idea.
Okay.
They posed the scenario for the Lions for next season, and I wanted to kind of get your thoughts. Considering the Lions will likely be picking in that 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 range, probably outside the realm of getting one of the top-notch quarterbacks in this draft, how would you feel about the Lions not taking a quarterback in the first round, going a different route, maybe a defensive playmaker along the line in the trenches or in the linebacker core, going somewhere else with their top pick or trading back and getting somebody, I don't know, but not taking a quarterback in the first round, putting the quarterback pick off until next year, and signing Cam Newton to a 1-year deal in the offseason to be the quarterback for the Lions next year, to either allow the guy you end up picking at quarterback this draft to work behind him and learn, or you wait until next year to get your guy. And the reason and the justification behind this was he'll be dirt cheap. And I mean dirt cheap.
I just don't like it.
But why?
I don't. So, it's just the prospect of I'd rather take a stab on a quarterback, have him not work out, suck this season, and take another quarterback next year.
But are you willing to give up on a guy after one season?
No, but I want to throw my darts on the board. I don't want to just say, if there's a quarterback available that I think could work, I don't want to just say, nah, we could probably suck more next year and get an even better quarterback. But
I'm talking, you're looking at, your options at quarterback at 12 are Kyle Trask and beyond. So are you going to take Kyle Trask?
So not even works? Trey Lance is available?
No, none of them. Because there's a very good chance none of them will be available to you if you're picking at 10, 11, or 12.
Then at that point, yeah, I'll try to take best player available at that point, and then maybe take a stab at one of the later rounds in the quarterback, see if that one pans out. But
it never will. Don't even look at it. No, don't even look at it. No, don't even look at it.
You could try.
I don't care. I don't even want to waste the pick. And I'm kind of on board with it. And the reason I say this is because he will be dirt cheap, which will allow you to spend the money elsewhere to build this roster. You build the roster, and then next season, when you're inevitably very bad because Cam Newton can't throw the football whatsoever, and you have a high pick, probably in the top 5, you then grab your quarterback to a team that has lots of money and is probably a little bit closer to win and is just a quarterback away. So that's why I kind of am on board with it, and I like the idea just because of that, because he is going to be dirt cheap, and it's a situation where maybe we will be successful then, because that will have meant that we are successfully able to trade away Matthew Stafford for whatever we can get for him, which is likely a second and a third round pick, potentially a first round pick. I'm almost on board to say maybe we package our first and Matthew Stafford to trade up into the top 5.
This year?
This year. Or top 3 even.
You're trading up and giving him Matthew Stafford. I mean, I'll take that.
you might get your quarterback. I don't know, but either way,
you get Trevor Lawrence still.
No, you'd have to go to the Jets to get that, and I don't think they're looking at a 34-year-old quarterback. Is that how old he is now? I don't think they're looking at Matthew Stafford.
You don't know what the Jets are looking at.
No, I know what they're looking at. It's Trevor Lawrence right in the face. So that's what they're looking at.
Trade up. If you trade in the top 5, you can probably guarantee yourself Zach Wilson at least at that point.
Yes.
But yeah, I wouldn't mind that.
But either way, I do believe that this team is going to look very different next year. Again, this game, in my opinion, was inconsequential at best, and at worst,
that's why we spent so little time talking about the actual game.
Right, you moved up in the draft, and you might find yourself with a better pick than what we thought a couple of weeks ago. So yeah. I'm okay with that.
Let's move on to the Pistons. So Pistons had a couple preseason games, one on Friday, one on Sunday against the New York Knickerbockers. They split the series. Obviously, we got to take everything we're seeing here with a grain of salt because it is the preseason. Although Tom Thibodeau has some weird obsession with playing his starters the whole time. Like, Dwayne Casey was trotting out our G League team at one point.
I mean, nobody on their team played more than 29 minutes.
Starting lineup in.
Nobody on the Knicks played more than 29 minutes. And
like, you should have seen the end of last night's game. It was over. They were down by 10 with like a minute left. Tom Thibodeau had all the starters in. We had like Anthony Lamb, Louis King. We had Rodney Magruder.
Yeah. Okay. In last night's game, they had 2 players. Over 30 minutes, which that I don't understand. But in the first game, nobody played more than 29 minutes. Last night's game makes 0 sense to me. Outside of the fact that, okay, RJ Barrett is a guy I would actually be willing to stretch out a little bit in the preseason because, again, that is supposed to be the future of their organization. Yeah. He's a guy I'd be willing to stretch out. Julius Randle, not so much. We know what he is. So I don't see the reason for him playing over 30 minutes. The guys I would be looking at playing 25 to 30 minutes right now if I'm the Knicks are RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, Mitchell Robinson, Dennis Smith, Kevin Knox, Frank Ntilikina, those guys are the ones I'd be playing over 20, 25, 30 minutes right now.
Yeah.
Not Julius Randle, not Nerlens Noel, not Alec Burks. We know what those guys are. They've been in the league for a hot minute.
But the start of the first game was definitely Svi and Sadiq Bey. I mean, they shot the lights out, but I do want to touch on Sadiq for a second because obviously I'm not going to take all these stats stuff into account. I try to take on just potential or just things I see from the player themselves on the court. And one thing I saw from Sadiq that I didn't think he had in him was an ability to create off the dribble. He had a couple times where he was able to get spacing off the dribble, had a nice step back. I didn't know Sadiq had that in him. So that was encouraging. We saw a little bit of it in game 2 also. And then obviously Svi, we all know Svi can shoot. That's not a
secret. We've known that since the man came into the league.
But basically who everyone was looking at the first 2 preseason games, let's not be around the bush, is Killian Hayes. And Killian Hayes played well in a lot of aspects, but to put it lightly, his shot just wasn't falling at all.
Which was a big concern coming in, when we drafted him. Is the shot going to fall? Is it there? So, I mean, that's a little bit worrisome.
Yeah,
to see
I will say in the first game, he looked, at least in the offensive end, he looked really nervous. He looked stiff out there, like he's just a little unsure of himself. However, on the defensive end, he was all over the place. Like he was guarding everyone. He was getting steals. He was jumping all over the court, and he also showed really good passing vision, which is what we expect out of him. He made some really nice, there were times where I thought he had eyes at the back of his head. So I'm like, how the hell do you see that guy in the corner when he's still like? But yeah, the shooting is something that's going to need to be improved. But it's not. I don't know about you. I'm not too worried about it yet. I think the shot will fall eventually. It's not like he has terrible form or anything. He has really nice form, unlike someone like Stanley Johnson. It's just let him.
I mean, I can't necessarily say the shot will fall eventually, just because of the fact it didn't fall when he played overseas. It wasn't there. It's not that he doesn't have bad form. It just he's just not a great shooter at this point in time. But is that something that can be coached and learned and worked on? Absolutely. And that's why I'm not necessarily worried. But, to keep things status quo right now, I can't say that the shot will eventually fall. But like you mentioned, he is an obvious playmaker with the ball in his hands, both creating his own shot, being able to take the ball to the hole, but also create offense for his teammates. And I saw a couple of plays where he looked like a vet out there, taking the ball into the hole and making a play and creating a shot for himself, but also having the awareness to be able to dish it out to his teammates when needed to. And to see him be able to do that just in the first preseason game, that's what we drafted this guy for.
Yeah.
So if he's able to continue to develop on that, I'm excited, without a doubt. That's something I want to see out of him, and that's something I definitely will be excited to continue to watch.
And one thing I want to see him do, and I'm actually not sure if he has this in his arsenal or not, but I didn't see him like blow by anybody. I saw him try to create his own shot. It was mostly by going left thread a little bit and then hitting it, and then going for a step back. And his step back's killer. He has got a nice looking step back.
He does. There is one good highlight of him taking it to the hole where he did go right by his man and get to the hole and put up a nice play. There is at least one play he made, which shows that he has it in his arsenal.
And then, but yeah, he looked a lot more poised, a lot more calm. His second game, I think he's got. I don't want to say frustrated, but he got that bit of shooter's mentality in the second game where his shot wasn't falling, so then he started trying to force it almost. Like, I'm just going to keep shooting until it falls, and he started taking some questionable shots. But
I mean, 2 of 11 from the field, 1 of 6 from outside in game 2. Are you at all worried about the 7 turnovers in the first game?
No, because he only had 1 turnover in the second game. He addressed it. He addressed it head on. Even Dwayne Casey said he pointed out his mistakes before we even pointed out in film. He came to me and told me exactly everything he did wrong before I had to tell him anything. So I think he knows. Casey had said in training camp that one of the big issues with Killian and with the team as a whole was turning the ball over, and that showed in the first game. That there were a lot of turnovers in the first game, but I was happy that Killian cleaned it up. Not so much Jeremy Grant.
Jeremy Grant's got to get his act together. Granted, Jeremy Grant only had 1 turnover in game 1, but he did have, I believe, 5 in game 2.
I think he had 7 in game 2.
Was
maybe
it
5.
7?
It could have been 5. But
it was 5. I got the
5.
box score right here.
And Jeremy Grant, he has not looked good so far.
No, 9% from the floor in game 1. Game 2, he upgraded by, a big upgrade, a solid 16 percentage points to 25% in game 2.
But again, you're not going to get me to get worried about any of these guys because, again, we're talking about having 1 week of training camp and then just going right into it.
Right. These guys haven't played basketball for a long time.
Yeah. One big positive stroke, though, specifically in game 2, Sekou Boya, he developed things that I've been looking for him to develop all of last year, and that's a sense of assertiveness, aggressiveness. He was all over the floor on Sunday. He did everything. And obviously, again, we got to take it with a grain of salt, but just I'm happy that I'm seeing that mentality out of him, and that's what I'm hoping carries over into the regular season.
No, I agree. Sakou's performance in game 2 was very much exciting. I'm not going to jump for joy just yet. We have seen this flash from him before, only to see him play bad enough to end up back in the G League. So I'm not going to, until I see a level of consistency from him, I'm not really going to get too excited about it. I do want to see him continue to develop, and what we saw in this past game was something to be happy about, and there's hope there. It tells me that he's not a project that they've already given up on. That they're still looking to continue to develop Sekou Doumbouya to be a part of this organization in the future. Saddiq Bey, like you mentioned, he can shoot and he can create a shot, which is something we didn't know he could do. Granted, he hasn't shot the greatest from the floor. He didn't, the numbers don't say he shot well. I mean, he only shot 33% from the field in both games. So the stats not there, but to see him be able to take have the willingness and the confidence to pull up and take the shot, that's what we want to see out of Saddiq Bey, and I want to see that continue because I do believe for him the shot will fall.
Yeah,
he's one that I do believe the shot will fall. Now, I do have a question for you. we got the chance to see a guy on New York that Pistons had a chance to draft this year. And Obi Toppin. He was there for them at their pick. And instead, the Pistons went with Killian Hayes. Did you have any buyer's remorse or what if feelings seeing Obi Toppin play? Because he was pretty damn good in game one.
Game one, he had. I believe if Thibodeau let him play more, he easily would have had over 20 points in game one.
Yes,
he had like 6 minutes where he was just cooking everybody on the floor. And then Thibodeau pulled him out and like barely put him back in again.
Right. Which I think he had seen all he needed to see from Obi Toppin. He clearly had a minutes cap on him of 20 minutes because that's exactly what he played and said, Obi, go out there and do what you do and make plays. And he did. I mean, 11 points, 7 boards, and an assist. I mean, that's what they brought him in to do, is to be the guy on the floor and to be aggressive and get rebounds and be a scorer and take shots. And that's what he did. And so are you at all regretting not taking him there? He was my favorite guy. He was one of my top picks in the draft. But are you at all saying, damn, we could have had him?
I'm not regretting it, at least not yet, because, again, he was better defensively than I thought he was going to be, but he was still pretty bad defensively. And I still am really high on Killian Hayes. I've been really high on Killian Hayes. I'm not just I still really like what I see, even if his shot isn't falling. I still really like everything else I saw, like literally everything else that I saw from him.
Outside of the turnovers in game one.
Yeah, outside of the turnovers in game one. But so no, I'm not regretting it. I will say one guy that's giving me a little bit of buyer's remorse though, and it's not on the Knicks. It's Deni Avdija on the Wizards. He shot 100% in his first game.
Yeah, I mean, shoot or shoot, man.
He was making shots from all over the floor. I was like, oh, damn, maybe we should.
Shoot or shoot.
You know, one guy that's kind of starting to win me over, though, a little bit that I didn't like in the draft was Isaiah Stewart. And the reason is, it's what I expect in terms of his aggressiveness, but he plays bigger than he actually is, like, than his size on the floor, outside the fact that he doesn't really play above the rim.
Length.
It's because he doesn't play above the rim, but, like, defensively, like, there were times where I could swear he was the biggest guy on the floor, and I knew he wasn't, but like it looked like it. And just how aggressive he is, I love. I mean, he got ejected in game 2. He got ejected in a preseason game. I mean,
the one thing that I'll say is worrying me about Isaiah Stewart is even in the preseason, Dwayne Casey's not looking his way to put him in the game. And this is where I would say, like, okay, this is where you can play him, as many minutes as he wants, allow him to grow, and allow him to make mistakes. We're not here to win basketball games. We're here to develop. So to only see him in games for 6-7 minutes a game, that worries me, because that means that he's not doing enough in practice to justify playing even in the preseason. So, I mean, at that point, I'm looking at it as, did we waste a pick in the low teens on Isaiah Stewart? When we could have gone elsewhere. Again,
I'm pretty vocal, and I really liked Tyrese Maxey there when we were picking. But like, he's basically getting the third rotation minutes, like the third string minutes with Saban Lee is when we've been seeing Isaiah. He's peaked into the second rotation a little bit, but it's mostly when they get the closers out is when they put Isaiah Stewart out.
Which, see, I don't understand why they're willing. They want to play Ja Oka for 20 minutes a game in the preseason. Well, again, that's a guy we know what he is. Yeah. Like we know who he is. We know what his game is. Why are we not playing a guy who we have no idea what his game is? Like this is Isaiah. Like we know nothing about Isaiah Stewart out of what we knew from him in college.
I think the whole philosophy is, I think this is what Tom Thibodeau was doing too, is they're just trying to get the guys warmed up, like, because you've had such a short training camp. I think it's what it is, to be honest with you.
Which, fine, dandy, but do you really need to play him 20 minutes to do that?
Yeah. I mean, I got worried. Blake Griffin, I don't know what his final minute total was, but it felt like he played way too much in game 1.
He played 22 minutes both games, actually. He technically played more in game 2 than game 1.
It felt like maybe he played all 22 of those in the first half or something, because it felt like he was out for way too long.
Yes. Frankly, I'd be playing Blake Griffin like 10 minutes a game right now. Enough to get out there, break a sweat, sit down, rest those knees.
he looks back to form, though, so there's that.
I mean, yes, yeah. It's nice to see Blake back out there, but I just hope he stays healthy and adds to his trade stock.
Yeah. On the whole, though, this team is the general sense I get from this team is kind of exactly what I was expecting going into the season. Much improved defensively, almost devoid of offense.
A lot of it, what I'm seeing is a lot of outcast guys that they're trying to piece together a little bit, and a lot of youth.
They're playing with a chip on their shoulder.
They are, and a lot of youth, and I like that. It may look
average
messy,
24,
right? And they may look very messy at times, but they're playing hard and they're scrappy, and they're going to be in games in some games when they really shouldn't be.
Yeah,
and that's something that I like about it, and I think that Dwayne Casey is the right coach for a situation like this to allow these guys to grow and develop to eventually be something. I'm looking for guys like Josh Jackson, Svi Mikhailuk, Sekou Doumbouya, Jeremy Grant, DeLon Wright, Killian Hayes, Sadiq Bey. I'm looking for those guys to develop and get better and be what we drafted them or brought them in to be.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling like we're building an identity here, and I know you mentioned that, and we mentioned that a couple of weeks ago, that it finally sounds like we're going to have an identity with this team. And just from seeing the first two games and what we've seen so far, I'm really starting to get a feel that we are starting to actually build an identity with this team, and that's something that I really like.
I agree 100%, and I also will say that what I wanted from this team this year, or I should say what I want from this team this year, is a team that's going to go out there and compete. Unlike last year, I felt like we coasted a lot last year. I do want a team that's going to go out there and compete and be at least exciting to watch, but just as a roster is not going to be good enough to get outside of a top 5 pick. Right. And it's what it's looking like to me right now. It makes me happy.
If I had to choose realistically what I hope this team does this year, and I'm talking realistically, obviously I hope this team wins every single game and they go to the playoffs and win the NBA title.
Yeah.
But that I know is not realistic. And that's what I want for every team that I'm a fan of every year. But I know it's not a realistic situation for, really any team here in the city of Detroit. So realistically, what I want for this team this year is I want them to not win a lot of games. And by that, I mean, I in the teens somewhere, if they may, but by the record, look like a bad basketball team, but the point differential ain't that big. It ain't that far off. And I know some nights it's going to look real bad, but I want most nights, like you mentioned, I want them to be competing. I want games to be within 10 points. I want them to be scrappy at the end, not just be a pushover. I want that point differential to be close. And if they don't win a lot of games, which at this point for the future of this franchise, I hope they don't. Realistically speaking, I hope they don't. To keep them inside the top of that lottery and have a chance to get Cade Cunningham.
And honestly, that's what it seems like the identity is trending towards for this team, is just these scrappy defensive underdog-minded players.
God, does that ever sound familiar?
Troy Weaver has been talking every presser Troy Weaver does. He's talking about this is how the old Pistons teams were built. We're trying to emulate that. And
God, does that ever sound familiar? A team of outcasts that are scrappy with a chip on their shoulder, stout defensively, just trying to build something together and earn their stripes in this league. And oh man, does that sound familiar?
Oh yeah. But yeah, the 2021 draft is way too good to not suck this year.
Agreed.
Real quick, I just want to ask you, did you see LeVar Ball's comments on the Pistons cutting LaMelo? Or not LaMelo, LiAngelo?
I did not.
Because he did
we caught him today, which
yesterday
funny.
He was doing an AMA, and in the middle of his AMA was when LiAngelo Ball got cut from the pit, when it was announced. And so they asked him on the AMA, and he said, I definitely have thoughts on that. The people in Detroit are great. I love the fans, but the franchise over there is raggedy as hell.
He's the one who said he wanted LaMelo to come here.
He said, they don't know a good player. I was giving them a lottery pick for free. He has the skills to play and the notoriety to bring everybody to the game. How do you throw that out the window? They're going to learn the hard way. My boys are going to end up playing together somewhere. Jello can shoot the lights out. That was raggedy what they did, but hey, they're going to learn the hard way.
I honestly hope
lottery pick for free.
I mean, the dude was he? I don't even think he was drafted, so I don't think he was a lottery pick. But I'll be honest with you, I may be alone in this one. I would have loved to see all three of the ball boys play for Detroit and play for the Pistons. It would have been at the very least exciting. I do hope they end up playing together somewhere. It just fulfills the prophecy, and it'd be a lot of fun to watch. But
You know, it'd be really funny. It would be really funny if it was here after he just called us raggedy as hell.
That would be awesome. That would, because you know damn well he'd be eating his words. At least he gave a shout out to the fans in the city here. You know what? I'll take that. He's had worse things to say about other organizations in other cities, so I'll take that.
The two things I'm hung up on are raggedy as hell and giving them a lottery pick for free.
I mean, he's always going to talk up his boy. I mean,
he also said he has a notoriety to bring everybody to the game. Like, do you really think that if LiAngelo Ball was on the roster opening night, that pandemic aside, it would have put butts in seats?
I actually do.
Really?
If the guy were to be someone who would have played, like if he would have been a regular rotational guy on the roster, I actually do think he would bring more people to the arena than this team would have otherwise. It's a Ball. The Ball name sells. Let's be honest here. The Ball name is something people go to watch. More so for the train wreck aspect of it than anything else. Like, sure, LaMelo Ball, you go to watch because he's an extreme talent. But you go to watch a ball boy play because, I mean, it's like a car crash. It's hard to look away sometimes. Like, you go to watch it be a mess and be, you know, there's buzz. Let's go with that. When a ball boy is in a lineup, there's buzz around. And they prove that in high school. They prove that in college. And they prove that in the JBL and when they played overseas. Like they sold tickets everywhere they went. So I do think people would have gone to see LiAngelo Ball play. Now, I will also say this and say I think he is the lowest selling point of the three. Like I don't think he's like if LaMelo Ball sells 1,000 tickets, Lonzo probably sells 700. LiAngelo maybe sells 300. So I think there's a big step down there. But I do think there would be people that would go to the arena to watch him play. I do.
Yeah.
That's saying he's guaranteed playing 15, 20 plus minutes a game. Otherwise, ain't nobody going to watch dude sit on the bench.
Yeah.
Granted, there were people that went to go watch Darko play in his rookie year. So it, is what it is.
Yeah. I was just watching Darko's the highlights from Darko's first preseason game this morning.
Oh God.
My God.
Does that like, did you do that to like kind of temper your excitement and expectations of Killian Hayes? Like, did that just like calm you down a little bit?
No, because it wasn't purposeful. I was actually just on, it was just a recommended on my YouTube thing.
Like,
and I was like, oh, this will be interesting.
I'm sitting here thinking that you went to go watch it just to calm yourself down. Like, you're really excited about Killian Hayes. Like, I got to bump the brakes. Let me go watch some Darko film.
I will never forget the layup that hit the bottom of the backboard.
Oh, man.
And then when he tackled his teammate that was trying to get a rebound.
You know it's bad when Chauncey Billups comes out, like, I think he said this probably like 5-10 years ago, where he comes out and says, we knew day 2 that he sucked. We knew from the second practice he was no good.
What's
That's
weird
bad.
is the scout that scouted him, I didn't know this until today. The scout that scouted Darko Milicic is the same scout. He specializes in foreign players. The same guy that got Dirk over the NBA and the same guy that got Luke over the NBA.
I mean, you're not going to get them all.
You're not going to get them all.
And in all reality, there wasn't a ton to go off of with Darko.
Yeah.
You had one-on-one film. You had, very minimal actual live game film in a legitimate competitive setting. Like there just wasn't much there. So it was a crapshoot, There just wasn't a lot there. I mean, we saw videos of him backing down a chair and how great he looked there.
One thing I'll never forget from that pre-draft process was remember I've said before on the show, this is the first draft that I actually remember following, and I remember the player comps that were coming out, and Darko's player comp I remember was Hakeem Olajuwon.
Oh God. Oh man. How can you compare that man to the Dream? Oh man.
Yeah, we never saw anything close.
Could you imagine if he actually turned into Hakeem?
What Hakeem coming off the bench? With that team? I don't understand.
Oh my God. No, they would have gotten rid of Big Ben a lot sooner. One could only reminisce.
One can only reminisce.
But anyways, though, I think there's a lot to be excited about with the future of this team. I do. It feels like there's a sense of direction. They're building something here, and it's something that, frankly, I believe in. So I like what we're doing here, and it's the first time I've had a real positive outlook with this Pistons organization in quite some time.
Yeah, like you said before, since they traded for Tobias Harris and Avery Bradley was the last time I had this positive an outlook on the Pistons.
Exactly.
Only they kept going with that. I really feel like they could have had something there. But
see, that just seemed like it
Avery
didn't work
sucked,
out.
but like Tobias was doing just fine.
Good. He was
I still
good.
don't like that we traded him for Blake Griffin. I think we should have just kept Tobias.
I mean, I won't disagree with you, but I am more on the standpoint of we
the
traded
past is the past.
the draft picks we traded away hurt us more than trading Tobias, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But again, like Tobias was good. I don't think that team ever would have won anything because I don't think you were winning with Andre Drummond playing the way he was. I don't think you were winning with Greg Monroe playing the way he was or Reggie Jackson playing the way he was. Like I just don't think that team put together the way it was a team that was ever going to win anything.
Yeah.
So, I was excited when it first happened, but as I saw it play out, it just didn't seem like things meshed well together, and that's why I get that the excitement dwindled away. But
and Reggie Jackson just continued to trend downwards from his first game.
My
to less than
God, yes, he did. But this really is one of the first times in a long time I'm excited about the direction of this organization and the way that this team is being built. So,
yeah,
good things coming. Anything else to add?
That's all I got.
All right. That's going to close it out for today, guys. Thank you so much again for listening. We'll catch you guys next week. Follow us on Twitter @RealFanReport. Andrew, thank you for joining me as well. And thank you to Detroit Sports Podcast. We will catch you guys next week. This has been the Fan Reporters by fans.
Well, first, and if you guys like fantasy football, keep an eye out for the Fantasy Fan List podcast come later this week as well.
Yes, that too. This has been the Fan Reporters by fans.
For fans.
Thank you guys again. We'll see you next week. Peace out.
Peace.